Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the Football League Hub fan camp. We're going to be discussing the Euros 2020, obviously played in 2021 due to the coronavirus. Yeah, it was quite a compact tournament, a bit crazy to say the least. Lots to get through, so let's crack on. I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Toffee from London, a big Manchester United fan. I've got two of my colleagues here. They're going to introduce themselves. So over to you.
Yeah, I'm Phil. I'm from Manchester, also a Man United fan.
Hey, I'm Surya here. I'm from India. Cool.
Fantastic. So let's get stuck right in. So first point I wanted to talk about is some of the unfortunate stuff, like France. Yeah, France were a bit disappointing, weren't they? The favourites. What happened there, Phil?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you look at Kante, who had, he was looking fantastic at the beginning of the tournament. Pogba played some amazing games. Everyone was waxing lyrical about his passing, and his obviously that standout goal was just fantastic. His sort of Cantona-esque celebration where he just stopped and looked around was just, But I think Mbappe, he just didn't, wasn't able to get into the tournament. He's one of the world's best players, and then he just didn't turn up at one of the world's biggest tournaments.
Yeah, I think he let out his inner Daniel James there, where it was all legs, no brains, unfortunately, for Mr. Kylian Mbappe. But yeah, as all things, I'm sure he's going to be backfiring as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't stop world class, can you? It was in most games people doubling up on him all the time, sort of thing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And France, heading into the tournament as the absolute favorites, considered as the favorites to win it, and getting knocked out in such fashion was just came as a shock. Like no one saw it coming. Especially at least me myself didn't see it coming. To be honest.
Yeah.
But one player that definitely stood out. Sorry, guys. One player that definitely stood out is Benzema. That goal with that touch against the Swiss. Wow, unbelievable. Benzema turning the clocks back there. So, do you see him in the next year's in the coming years World Cup?
Yeah, I think we do. I think with the World Cup coming so soon, I think you look at the fact that you're surprised that he's been out here for so long. I know there was controversy, which was part of the reason he was out of the squad. But the minute he was back in it, he's really turned up at that tournament, and he was the one who led the line. He was fantastic. He always has been. Class is permanent, isn't it?
That's what they say.
And I feel Pogba also deserves a huge shout out for the way he carried himself through the tournament, and it was just he was probably France's best player, and it's just such a shame that France couldn't pull it through, like couldn't go to the ladder chase.
I wouldn't say it's a shame. I was quite happy actually. They've won the World Cup already. They need to share the silverware. There's quite a lot of countries in Europe that are desperate for a bit of stuff to put in their cabinet. So yeah, like I said, I'm not too disappointed with France there.
Yeah.
However, Belgium, another disappointment. What do you guys reckon about Belgium? Do you think they'll be back 2022, or do you think their time's passed and unfortunately, they've missed their golden era?
I think they'll be back. I think they've got an opportunity to come back, but I don't think they'll be back next year. I think that they've got an aging squad, and they haven't got enough time with the World Cup coming up so soon. They haven't got enough time to start to build it again from grassroots, as England have been doing. They've built that team that's been coming, and I think it's actually worked in our favour with it being delayed a year. While some players, we've had obviously the lockdown and that, but we've had some of the players have had an extra year's experience, whereas they probably wouldn't have had a chance to get into the tournament a year ago.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there.
No.
To be honest, talking about years to come, that Jeremy Doku, boy, does he look like a good player. I think he's still young enough for him to change nationalities, isn't it?
Absolutely, mate. The boy seems like an absolute baller. He probably stood out for me in the Belgian side. Like he's the way he carries himself for his age is just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he's definitely going to get a move somewhere. Do you reckon Premier League? But yeah, I think Liverpool will link with him. I'll be happy if he doesn't get to Liverpool. But yeah, there's
Don't want none of that. Don't want him.
all right, guys. I know the comments are probably going to go crazy now with so many Man United fans there. We'll keep the bias to a minimum. But anyway, yeah. So we've had a few disappointing countries there within France and Belgium, but we've also had some standout from some of the lower expectation teams. Like big shout out to Switzerland and Denmark. What can you say about them?
They've been fantastic, haven't they? At the end of the day, they've come into the tournament nobody really expecting much of them, and they've really just stood out, and they've given their all. They've left nothing on that pitch whatsoever. You could see every single, some of the goals that they scored, some of the games that they played in, they just dragged themselves along. And they were 3-1 down with 10-15 minutes to go. And just back to get it to 3-3 was just outstanding. Nobody saw it coming, and when they did, it was like, wow, France were not expecting it.
No, they weren't. That Granit Xhaka is quite a player, isn't he? It's a shame we've not seen him for a few years. Where's he been anyway?
That performance was just outstanding, wasn't it?
And the way he led the squad was just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, some of those passes he was playing was just out of this world. The Arsenal fans must be reeling, thinking, "Where's this guy been? Where's this guy we bought? This is the one we signed up for."
Yeah, to be honest, people say that about Pogba and Man United, don't they? There's something about playing for your national team that seems to bring out the passion. Some people argue that the one team that most people desire to play for is the national team. Some people talk about is Pogba heart at Man United, or does he see himself somewhere else? But yeah, Xhaka is probably going to go on the cheap. Done well for Switzerland, fantastic. But the Danes, wow, the Eriksen effect. What can you say about that?
Absolutely, bro. That's just a fairy tale story. To be honest, the way the tournament started for them was something you really don't want to see on a football pitch ever, and it just completely rocked the entire football universe. Just like, and one good thing you could see out of that is the way everyone came together and supported the Danes, and how, irrespective of the country people supported, everyone just came together, wanted Denmark to do well, and it was just absolutely beautiful to see them go so far.
Yeah, and they did go so far. They did so well. They had some standout players, and their star player was unable to obviously be in the tournament, but they still had some. Dolberg with his performance against England with his free kick. It just absolutely outstanding. Some of the performances they put in, and they just played as a team, and you could see that every single minute. From the moment they entered back on the pitch, they were just playing for Eriksen. Certainly from the very beginning, Simon Kier was such a good friend, and the goalkeeper Michael, absolutely fantastic. We've seen him in the Premier League all the time, but again, he didn't let the Denmark down, sort of thing at all. So
yeah, I think he had a good role model, didn't he? Someone called Peter, if I'm not correct.
Peter, somebody,
yeah, Peter. So yeah, he definitely grew up in a good family with great football background there. It is a shame, like the penalty with the laser in his eyes and all of that. So yeah, let's touch on that game for a little bit. Denmark versus England. Yeah, I do believe England deserved to win that game, regardless of whether you think it was a dive or not. I know some people are saying double contact. Some people are saying, well, that's the rules now, especially if you've got VAR. And VAR will inspect everything. It's a shame that it had to end that way, because it was such an enthralling game. The free kick from Damsgaard, wow. Come on, kids, I think it's 21 years old or something.
Yeah, quality, wasn't it? What a goal that was. What a goal. I mean, you could argue that was never a free kick in the first place. But, once they got the free kick, there's nothing stopping that. I mean, maybe Pickford could have been slightly more to his right. He did look really far over to the left when he went to dive to save that, and you think, could he have just been a little bit further across? Could he have just reached it? He almost put his fingertips to it, but what if the way the free kick just went up and down again to the beautiful dip on it, absolute quality finish. And when they finished with 10 men and still ran it to the ground, gave it all to the very last minute, and you just knew they were playing with pride and passion for Eriksen as well as themselves and for the whole country.
Yeah, so just would like to touch one more time on that. Would like to say Eriksen, hopefully he gets back on the pitch again. It would be a shame if that was the end of his career, because I think he's 28, 29, 30 or something. He's still got a couple more years left in him at the highest game. I'm sure Inter Milan will want him back on the pitch, and I'm sure the rest of us would love to see him kick a ball again, regardless of what team you support. That is the beauty of football. You see how it brings the nation together. So, take England, for example. A small little island, not too many people compared to some of the other bigger nations. And we've definitely rallied together. I don't want to talk about some of the negative. We'll touch on that later on, but let's talk about England. So what's your thought on Southgate, his team selections? What do you think?
Yeah, I think with his team selections, I think, he's not listening to the media. I think there's been some games where you think perhaps he could have just tweaked them a little bit more, made some changes a little bit earlier. He's made his own decisions, putting Grealish on in the 68th minute, something like that, and then taking him off 20 minutes later just to run the game down. It's not the sort of substitution that you expect to see. Someone like Grealish or the whole nation screaming, "Bring on Grealish," and then it's like, take off Grealish again, sort of thing. So, you have to question some of his decisions, but he got us to the final where we've not been since 1966. So he did something right.
Definitely did something right, but is it the case of Southgate, or is it the case of that we're going through our own, you could say, second golden age? I know we've had one before: Rooney, Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Ashley Cole, Rio Ferdinand. We had some crackers, didn't we, back then? Unfortunately, we didn't win anything. So do you think it's more the players or the manager? So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so for me, but Southgate's been quite interesting, to be honest. Like, initially I was not at all convinced with the way he's setting up his team and stuff like that. Like what Phil was saying, it's more like he did take a lot of unconventional calls, something which no one would even think of. Like especially, it was quite surprising to see England going with two holding midfielders, and I felt the midfield kind of like really lacked creativity, especially in the group stages, and it was. And it felt like you needed more creative attacking players in that midfield, and that was something I kind of like couldn't comprehend for a while. But however, Gareth Southgate's done a good job in bringing the nation together, bringing everyone together. He's got England to a final after so long, and I feel he deserves to keep his job till the next World Cup at least. And but however, he still has. I think there are a few question marks around his team selection.
He was very methodical in his approach. He seemed at times afraid to take a risk. Players looked tired, and he was afraid to take them off because he just didn't seem to have the trust in his team. But when Sancho played that full game, and he just played absolutely fantastic. You look at the Germany game, 2-0. We attacked. We believed in ourselves. We didn't think we could win it, and then the whole nation were behind him. And look at the performance we put out. Absolutely fantastic. We dominated that game. It was there was no looking back on that whatsoever, But as you say that you're disappointed with the midfield, so but we've got we had them on the bench. We just sat there waiting, screaming to get on.
I think that was what he meant by the disappointment, not the lack of availability.
Right.
For me, Mason Mount, first game not so great, second game. I feel like Southgate has his favourites, maybe not favourites, maybe players he trusts a bit more. Sterling, Kane, Mount. I think Grealish, after the season he had, he should have had the nod over Mount. In my opinion, Foden obviously wasn't fit for the final. He had a knock. Sancho, I think the whole world is still scratching their head how not his performance in the final. We'll talk about that in a bit. But just the minutes or lack thereof. Do you see what I'm saying? A person that got 36 goals and assists for Borussia Dortmund, scored 2 goals and 1 assist in the Poker final, lifting that trophy. So talk about experience. He's got it though, hasn't he? He's 21, but he's had 3 fantastic seasons in Borussia Dortmund playing Champions League football. I think we missed a trick on that one.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the golden era from England, with the likes of Lampard, Scholes, and Gerrard, and they never got to a final. Never got as far as this, and my opinion is because there was too many superstars, and the manager wasn't prepared to make those changes. Was afraid to leave out some of the superstars, and I'm not saying that they weren't world-class players, because every one of them was. But you look at how many caps Scholes he had. He should have had so many more, but he couldn't get. the managers would never split up Gerrard or Lampard. They wouldn't make a decision. Whereas, as controversial as it is, Southgate made those decisions. He left out some of the star players who people were screaming for, and he took us to a final.
Can't disagree with you on that point. But the one thing I've noticed, I'm sure we've all been in the time that we had between the games watching the England post about the boys in the swimming pools and, you know, the unicorn, you know, that we had it in the World Cup and we've got the unicorns back again. I've never seen that before. Like, I've never seen that level of cohesion. And I think it's because of the ages of the players. And I believe, you know, how back in the day, you know, Man United, you had Arsenal, you had Liverpool and Chelsea, you know, the rivalry, the hatred that they had, the passion they had for their own clubs was so great. They couldn't put aside. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just.
No, I agree completely. I mean, you know, I think it was Rashford's post he's put out today, you know, where he's saying he can't believe how overwhelmed he is. But he spoke about, I think it was maybe yesterday actually, when he spoke about he didn't know how he felt and he didn't know how to put it into words. But he did talk about the whole team being a team, you know. They were. I think he said brothers. I think he called them brothers or something like that. And that's exactly what you've just been saying. You know, they you know, they'll get back on the pitch in a few weeks' time in the Premier League, and they'll be at each other again, and they'll be friends off the pitch. And I know, you know, Roy Keane's always like, you shouldn't talk to anybody, and you shouldn't look at anybody, you shouldn't smile at anybody, you shouldn't talk to them after the game. I kind of get it. You know, you've got to keep yourself focused on the game. But for England, they were a compact unit. They had the camaraderie. It wasn't like a prison as we've heard in the past with other England training camps. And you know, and I think that there was Gallas gives a good level to it. You know, you see a bit of humour in some of his interviews as well, which you think he's a very serious guy, but he seems, you know, if he is a bit more relaxed than he seems, then maybe that's part of the reason as well. Like,
yeah. So yeah, the cohesion in the squad is unreal. That I think it's also to do with the ages, because a lot of them are similar ages. Cause we've got a very young squad, so most of the times you see the YouTube, you see, you know, Saka with Rashford, with Mount, with Sancho. Do you see what I mean? They've had the little, and they've grew up playing in the under-17 championships, under-19 championships. You see what I'm saying? So they've had that, and you can see the social media. I know that we're going to talk about that in a bit, but you know. Even themselves, they banter with each other. It never happened before. And because I think social media, there is some good points to social media. And I think the younger lads have gelled together. And, you know, some of the social media points are funny and they do banter with each other, but you can see the love, even though they play for different clubs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel this is the right time to give Southgate the props he deserves. I feel this is the kind of cohesion is brought into this England setup is something he deserves massive credit for. Like there's this one vision everyone's working towards as a squad, as an England team. There's one sole focus of playing for England, and yeah. So I feel that's something Gareth Southgate's done brilliantly to bring these set of lads together, young who are driven, who are hungry, and who really want to excel for the country.
Yeah, like I said, I think we all three of us agree that he should be. He's definitely earned the rights to take us to World Cup 2022. Yeah. I do believe he needs to be less pragmatic. He needs to, you know, take off a star player if he's not playing well, because we've got many stars now. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and in a sense, like, if you put yourself in Rashford or Sancho's mindset for a minute now, you can see players like Mount and Sterling having a poor game, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm ready. Do you know what I mean? Gareth, I'm ready. Do you know what I mean? Trust me, put me on and I'll do the job. And the fact that minutes go, and the confidence gets lower and lower and lower, and you just think to yourself, you got 5 subs. You know what I mean? We may not get that in the next year. It might be, you've got 5. And I think England didn't use that to their benefit.
Yeah, I agree.
Italy took off Verratti before extra time. I think, 105 minutes or 90-something minutes?
Yeah.
Cracking player, isn't he? But then he knew that, like, Mancini knew he needed fresh legs to continue that dominance in the middle of the park. He knew that he had to put on Locatelli. even though you can see the difference in quality, it didn't downgrade
It was
that
the fresh
much.
legs made the difference, wasn't it? That's exactly where, you know, we fell down in the final. We just didn't make the changes. You know, there was too many games in the tournament, whereas, okay, we did get there, but you could just see with the dying embers of the game that there was some of the players were just like they were carrying fridges. They were just looked shattered. It were just the legs were gone, and you could see that there was no running in behind. And I'd just say with Rashford and Sancho on the bench, I mean, and Bellingham, all these players who've got the pace to run in behind and get in and create those moments which makes the defender just, they hate being attacked. And that's what we had, and we just left it behind. We should have brought on the fresh legs and just run them to the ground.
I'm telling you now, Bonucci and Chiellini, they're rubbing their hands. They could not believe they got away with that, because as great as they are, they don't have the legs. Spain, Dani Olmo, you know, all of these people were running past, and Pedro was just playing balls left, right, centre. You had Olmo, you had Ferran Torres, and it was just a nightmare for them. It's unfortunate that they didn't have a striker to finish off the multiple chances that they had, and I believe that's where we lacked, you know, a bit of bravery. You got to the final, lads. Yeah. You know what I mean? Just at 1-0, fantastic goal by Mr. Gilberto Carlos. Do you know what I mean? You've got to lay everything on the line there, and I think it's not because Gareth doesn't trust. I think it's mentality. We're not a country that's, you know, had too much international glory, and I think that plays on the players' minds, plays on Southgate's mind. It's more like, let's try to play without making mistakes, instead of, all right, we're going to make a few mistakes, but just keep going. We're going to break through. Do you see what I'm saying? At 1-1, we could have, but it was more like, let's not lose the ball, instead of let's get the ball up the pitch.
Yeah, he was very methodical in his play, wasn't he?
Yeah, I feel it's more of like Pat said, it's more like how the game was approached. Initially, England came out with such a bag. They got a goal way early in the game. They dominated the play for the first 20 minutes, and then it just felt like England just sat back, and then the Italians had complete control over the game. And if you just look at the entire 120 minutes, you just can't deny the fact that it's the Italians deserve to win. That's what I felt.
Oh, hang on a minute. They don't deserve to win. Not the way, if you can just drag a kid to the ground or drag Saka to the ground. That was assault in some places, you know.
Some would argue
it served time for it.
No, some would argue, you know, Chiellini took one for the team there. It had to be done.
Yeah.
If you let Saka run through, that was game over. Unfortunately, I think it should have been more than a yellow. I think he should have been a bit more punished, more than yellow. But the problem was, he was smart enough to do it on a pit.
He grabbed his shirt as well, didn't he? He didn't grab him around the neck. I mean, you'd look more about the tackle on Grealish with the stamp on that. You know, that should have been more than a yellow. That should have been a red. That would have been a game changer. You know, and the fact that, you know, there was so many tackles in that game which were just let go. When you think, flipping heck, are we watching wrestling or football here? It was horrific.
Talk about game changers. Unfortunately, the last 30 seconds is not a good time to put on players for penalties. I could understand if these players were rested for the game. You see what I mean? Like, they've had a good tournament, they've had a few goals, you know, they're buzzing and they're confident, and they didn't make the squad because of, you know, fitness, and then you're bringing them at the end to do the job. Like Harry Maguire's penalty, that was all pure confidence. You could see a man who's played fantastic throughout the whole tournament. And do you see what I mean? Rashford, we know he can take penalties, right?
Yeah, it was almost a perfect penalty, wasn't it? You know, the keeper went completely the wrong way. He completely bamboozled him, but then he just missed the target. And you know, Rashford himself, he knows that. You know, you could look at Sancho and Saka's penalty. They both hit the target. They weren't great penalties, as you say. You know, they had cold legs. They'd just come on. They had no chance to warm up. Not just that, they hadn't had a chance to get into the game, and the passion behind it. You know, you sat on a bench for not just for that game, but most of the tournament. You know, Rashford has had, you know, he said he's had a bad season, but you look at his stats, I think he still had like something like 30 goals and assists. If that's 36. A bad season, I can't wait for a good season.
36 goals for Rashford and Sancho. That's 72 goals and assists. He didn't utilize. Exactly.
Sat on the bench. And that's where, you know, Gareth was obviously seeing him in training. He's seen something. But at the end of the day, you've got to give those guys a chance and say, this is your moment. Take it. You've got to get out there and take it. And you just didn't give them enough of that.
talking about the final and penalties, unfortunately, there has to be a winner and there has to be a loser. And unfortunately, somebody does have to miss one for the game to finish. And the reaction that Bukayo Saka had before the game was all about praise. How a 19-year-old boy, not playing for a great Arsenal team, came into the World Cup. And people were like bantering on Twitter how he benched Sancho, he benched Rashford. And, as a Man United fan, it did hurt. But once I saw him play, I couldn't disagree. Do you know what I mean? You got to reward what you see on the pitch. And Saka's been fantastic. But what happened in the aftermath of that penalty miss from a 19-year-old lad, it was disgusting.
Yeah, it's appalling. The nation who are backing these players, saying that it's the best thing that's ever happened, and the whole country's going to have a celebration. We'll have a national holiday, and then before the game even began, there was all the fighting outside the stadium, and then fighting the way into Wembley. You see Wembley way afterwards, the way it was just it's just been used like a dump, a rubbish site, and then obviously the racism. It doesn't surprise you because unfortunately, no matter you take the knee and it means so much to those players, but you get some, get idiots who are booing the people taking the knee, literally recording themselves doing that. And there's just, that there is some people, there is a few minority out there who manage to stand out because they are the minority, because they're making the difference and going against the grain. They're the ones who are being shown, who are being seen as the public eye. And the truth is, we've seen it today. We've seen it in Rashford's post today in his tweet, where he's shown his mural has been, after it being completely defecated, he's been all the post-its over it, all the love around it. It's been made good today, sort of thing. And that is the true reflection of what's going on in the world.
So yeah, what's your views on the unfortunate social media abuse of 3 wounded lions who I'm sure will be back next year?
Absolutely. Because it's sure that they will make a strong comeback for sure. But what happened after the penalty shootout was actually really, really, really disheartening to see, and that's something you really don't want to see in the world, let alone world football. You don't want to see stuff like that in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just heartbreaking because these boys have been giving it everything for the country over the last 3 weeks. They've brought the country together. They brought the country so far, and it's just that one penalty kick and people just forget everything, and criticism is understandable. Like constructive criticism is understandable, but this is beyond constructive criticism. Like it's just
it was downright abuse from some people.
It's just downright abuse.
You can get disappointed, and there will be fans who are upset and take it personally. But let's not forget the bravery that it takes to step up.
Absolutely. You never took one before either. Never took a penalty before.
Yeah, Saka especially. I know Rashford as for club, especially against that PSG game. We know he can do it. Yeah. But in that game, he was running. He was confident. He had belief. And unfortunately, we now need to show our belief in the England squad. And we know 2022 is just a year later, so it's not going to be too long. They're going to dwell on their missed chances. So that's I guess one positive about the coronavirus delaying this for an extra year.
Yeah, that's it. We know some players have had a chance where they wouldn't have had a chance. And something we have learned from this tournament is Harry Maguire can take a penalty.
Absolutely.
I think Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes.
Bruno's got some serious competition, mate.
Absolutely.
You know what?
Competition there.
Yeah, Captain Harry. Eh?
It just shows the confidence, to be honest. Just pure confidence.
Well, that's it. They're the players who've been in the tournament who were like, I'm going to put this in the back of the net. I am going to break the back of the net with this. And the lads, Rashford and Sancho who came on and just didn't have the belief. You could see they just didn't quite have it. They almost, even when Gareth was pointing out who he's going to be picking and stuff, you think he's pointing at Grealish, or you think he takes.
Talking about Grealish, there was a Twitter post where he's come out and said that he told the gaffer that he wanted to take one, and unfortunately he wasn't picked. So we got a shout out to Jack Grealish. Super Jack. He's played a fantastic tournament, and I do believe when he said he wanted to take it, whether the fault lies with Gareth himself for letting Saka take that, or whether Saka was telling the boss, look, I've got this, I want to take it. Do you see what I mean? And if you then say no, you're going to break the guy's confidence. So,
well, I mean, Gareth said he picked the penalty. He chose the penalty takes. Then he said it was his decision based on what he'd seen in training in the week. So, but training and in front of the crowd where the whole nation is watching is a completely different environment, and you can't just put that on a 19-year-old's head, not in his first ever tournament.
But we do have to take a very short minute just to congratulate Italy. I know
that's 30 minutes over. That's it.
We do have to say over the course of the tournament, especially that game against Wales where they changed the players. But looking at Italy and looking at England, I can see some similarities. They're a strength bench, young player like Chiesa. He's not typical Italian player, is he? The way he attacks, he's a fantastic player. So. Yeah, like I said, let's not dwell on Italy anyway. They had their shining time, and hopefully we'll be back stronger. Well, that's all the time we have. It's been fantastic talking to you, Phil and Surya. Guys, please leave a comment. All of us is our first time. If you did like the content, or if there's anything else you want us to discuss in future, we've got Twitter, we've got Instagram, we've got YouTube. It's the Football League Hub. Check us out. We're on all social media. Show some love, subscribe, give us a shout, and thank you for listening to us. I've been Toffee.
Phil.
Surya.
And the famous saying, they think it's all over. It is now.
It is now.
Take care, lads. See ya.
Yeah.